For instance, when someone's challenging me, I've had in like work in something where it's a bit of a confrontation. I train myself
Yeah.
now to kind of take a moment and a deep breath before I respond. Rolling into
Yeah.
another topic with my man comrade. So today we're going to be talking about CBT and mind reading. This is something that I do, and I do it a lot. So I'd
Interesting.
like to learn more about why I do these things. So let's check this out. All right, so we got a video pulled up here about what are
Okay.
cognitive distortions. So let's check this out.
I hated giving presentations. They were just the worst type of assignment, in my opinion. I'd stumble over my words, forget what I wanted to say, and they just always felt like they went really poorly. But then I'd get pretty good grades. And I didn't ever understand how that was happening. How would I feel like I did so poorly, but then I'd get good grades? Well, eventually I learned this is caused by something called cognitive distortions. A cognitive distortion is a
Nice.
type of irrational thought where you see things as a bit more negative than they really are. Now,
Big
cognitive
time.
distortions are completely normal. Everyone has them. It's just part of being human. But when they're too frequent or too intense, they can contribute to problems like depression and anxiety. So today, I want to tell you about 5 different types of cognitive distortions.
Okay, let's get into this. So 5
Sounds
types of emotional reasoning here. So people get carried away with themselves. So let's see how we can.
Type 1, right? Yeah,
let's
okay.
go.
This I could probably relate to.
The first cognitive distortion is called emotional reasoning. This is when you feel something so intensely that you start to think it must be true. For example, think of someone who has a fear of flying. They know the facts that flying is safer than driving, but when they take that first step onto a plane, the fear takes over and they start to think, oh, I know this plane is going to crash. I know it's going to crash.
I think anyone who's flown a plane has had that thought. I want to get back to this video quick, but it's what we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier is when you can just like really get yourself worked up.
Right?
You know?
To his point about, real quick, the interview, or in his case, public speaking or presentations. I've gone into interviews and thought that I've bombed them. It's almost like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
I'll be talking, I'll be answering the questions, I'll be relating to the people, but it's not, almost not conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come out of there thinking, man, I bombed that interview. Like,
It's
there's no way.
it's one
The
of
job
those.
offer comes like a week later.
Yeah. I know what you're saying because I've experienced
Yeah,
that too.
no.
And isn't it like, do you get this too? Like, you don't even remember what you said and you were just
Yes.
kind of up there as a performer. And you're like, man, I kind of remember the part where I raised my voice and that person looked at me.
I
And
do.
yeah,
I
it's
do.
kind of like that. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I hope I didn't say something. What did I even say? You know?
Right. Like I remember, I cracked a little joke to get them to laugh and they laughed and wow, that's awesome. But I think, oh God, what did I actually
Yeah, what did
say?
I actually say?
Like
It's
I blew that, man. Yeah.
Of course, this
It's
feeling
so
doesn't have any bearing on the facts. But if you feel it strongly enough, it'll start to seem true.
yeah.
That's true.
The next cognitive distortion is called disqualifying the positive. This is when you look at a situation with both good and bad aspects, but you sort of push that good stuff aside and you just focus on the bad stuff. So imagine you
guilty
get
as
a performance
charged.
review at work. It says, great job, great job, great job, needs improvement, great job. You look at that,
Yeah.
all you see is needs improvement. You
Yeah.
forget about all the positive
Yeah.
feedback. Another good example, imagine you go on a first date, everything is going well, you're getting along, you have a lot in common, and then you say something really stupid, you just put your foot in your mouth, and you wish you could unsay it. Well, when you get home that night, that's all you can focus on, the stupid thing that you said. And you sort
Yeah.
of forget that you're getting along great and having fun. That's disqualifying the positive, when you only focus on a small negative aspect of
Gotcha.
some situation.
That I think is extremely common with people in general.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think our brains are wired to detect negative. It's a survival instinct. And I think this points out that, okay, yes, if you're in a situation where you have to survive, great. You want that, right? You don't want to get rid of it entirely. But if you're just disqualifying everything that's positive, yeah, that's a problem. I did learn his dating example is a great one. I did learn, at least in dating, how to stop disqualifying the positive, but I still disqualify the positive in other areas, which is hilarious.
Sure.
So it's not foolproof.
Fix
Or
fix
I should practice it more.
fix
Yeah.
one thing, but there's others that it can happen again in another way.
Yeah.
It can happen
Yeah.
endlessly, really.
True.
All right, this is me. This I
Here
heard
we
about,
go.
and I was like, that's what I do.
The next cognitive distortion is called mind reading. This is when you make assumptions about other people's thoughts or their intentions or behaviors without
okay.
really having enough evidence.
Yeah.
So imagine you give a friend
Yeah.
a call, they don't answer, and you start thinking, oh, I bet they picked up the phone, saw it was me, put it back down. Or I bet they're hanging out with someone else they like more, or maybe they just don't like me. And that's mind reading, when you make assumptions about why someone does something or what they're thinking or feeling without really knowing.
Yep. It gets a little more for me. It's more like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm in like a busy area, say like a supermarket or something like that, a Walmart,
Yeah.
and then like I guess I'm like kind of in tune with how people move because I don't I think people can't walk straight and they annoy me. So I'm always
Oh,
like okay, I'm like
guilty as charged
I'm
here,
like, this
probably.
lady
Yeah.
obviously doesn't know how to walk straight. She's just going to cut in front of me right when I go to the cheese section. And like,
Okay.
sometimes they do. I'll just go right up to the cheese section. And sure enough, she walks like a 2-year-old and just bumbles in front of me and just like cuts me off while I'm about to go look at my cheese. And I think it comes a lot out of this. So then I'll like round the corner with my cart and then I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'll see like these 3 kids or something or like some stupid teenagers. And I'm like, oh, they're annoying. And I better not go there because this kid's going to do this. And it's like,
Yeah,
I'm
you do the
constantly
whole- yeah.
painting scenarios. And sometimes
Yeah.
you do it enough. You are correct sometimes. Like the vibes you get sometimes are absolutely true. But sometimes I'm overanalyzing certain people. And I actually envy the ones who don't even do that and just walk freely and like cut people off. And like, I'm like, oh, look at you. You don't even care. You just out here doing what you do.
That's a great point. I think part of the reason, because I'm guilty of this too, part of the reason I get angry about it is because, I'm almost jealous of the person who's just let's say,
Carefree.
quote, unaware or carefree. Whereas, oh, that person cut in front of me, or he's gonna cut in front. Oh my goodness, they're
Yep.
slowing me down. That's a classic thought I
Yep.
have, which is inaccurate, right? But then I'm like, oh, there's a jealousy there. How can they be so carefree, man? Part of me is like, I wish I could do that too.
A lot of it is
Not just rudely cutting people, but just be carefree.
ignorance.
right?
Ignorance is one
Yeah.
that can push you through to act like that. You don't care. You're rude. You're ignorant. You're
Yeah,
aggressive.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff will just you don't even care. You're kind of looking to actually cut people off on purpose because so some people
Right.
it's very important to be able to be dominant because a lot of parts in their life they're not in control. So in these scenarios they're like, that's right, I got the green light, I got to get in this lane. It's
Right.
crazy what people
I've
do.
noticed that too, certain interactions. But during the interaction, they'll give clear signs that they are one of those like alpha male types,
Yeah.
They have to be the dominant position at all times.
Yeah.
And they will make it known to you in the interaction that
It
they're
usually
dominant.
doesn't
Really
work
something.
out for them because eventually they get butt up against what we call law enforcement or rules and regulations, and it usually ends up
Right.
they get burned a lot. It might not happen all the time, but once or twice a year they can make a terrible decision, and they'll find out that they really don't have all the authority that they think they do.
Oh yeah, life has a way of humbling people.
It certainly will. All right, let's move on.
Definitely will.
All or
Yeah.
nothing thinking.
Oh, here we go. This is a good
The
one.
next cognitive distortion is called all or nothing thinking. This is when you see things in extremes, nothing in between. They're either black or they're white. They're good or they're bad. On a more personal level, this might mean I'm beautiful or I'm hideous. I'm brilliant or I'm a moron. I've got a great job or I've got a terrible job. So for example, think of someone who seems to have a pretty good life. They've got a good job, close friends, hobbies they like, they're healthy, but their romantic relationship is sort of on the rocks. Now, most people might look at this life and think like, oh, that's great, they've got a good thing going. But they look at their own life and they think, my life's a mess, I'm such a loser, all because of that one thing. That's all or nothing thinking. When you reduce something to its extremes, just seeing the black or the white without seeing that gray in the middle.
Yeah. It's really, if you're tired or if you're, just not feeling it, you'll fall into all of these different things. It's just human nature, I think, but it is really difficult
It
to
is, yeah.
battle against it, to know different ways how to move in and out of these situations. And if you're hungry and tired, forget it. You'll probably just start to fall right into a lot of this
Oh,
stuff,
big
right?
time.
Oh,
When I'm
it's a big one.
stressed, the all or nothing thinking is most pronounced in me. I'm aware enough to know when I'm very stressed out about something, it is all or nothing. Like I go into like fight mode, you could say,
Sure.
and it is all or nothing at that. That's when it becomes most pronounced in my mind.
The one thing I want to introduce to this is masochism. I think is actually, when you enjoy doing these things to yourself to learn or to experience, which is something that I do. That's not great either, because then you're like you're looking for it. You're like, this will make me more prepared. I know certain people
Oh
who
yeah,
are,
I know what
who
you're
are like
saying.
that.
Yeah, you can almost put yourself through the ringer as part of a, I'm gonna, that which does not kill me make me stronger.
And the next time it happens, I'll know exactly what to say or do, which is great. It is. But, if you're just constantly looking for this, like, one puzzle piece in a 1,000-piece puzzle of your mind and the way you operate in the world, it's very hard to do,
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
All right, let's talk.
The final cognitive distortion I want to talk about today is called catastrophizing. This is when you only consider the worst possible explanations for something rather than the more likely explanations. For example, imagine you're waiting for a family member to get home from work, they're 15 minutes late, and you start thinking, oh, they must have been in a car accident, why else would they be late? When in reality, they're just stuck at work for 15 minutes or stuck in traffic.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
catastrophizing. You
Sure.
jump to the most drastic explanations
Yeah, that's a bad one.
I'm
without
funny
considering
about this. I don't do that as often. I notice that one. I know people who do,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty good about that to a point. I do it. I'm guilty of all.
I do have an interesting story to share with that. I was at a bar with my buddies. We used to
Okay.
go there a lot and socialize and chill. And this one particular evening, I guess your boy was looking good that night, and there was a beautiful young lady, and we became fast friends.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we had
Okay.
we shared a kiss. It was nice.
Yeah.
It was a good moment. We
Very
even have a
nice.
picture together. But I knew I can't keep her. She's not my girlfriend, and this is just a night.
Sure.
Anyway, so I guess she was with her friend, and how long can you hang out with a cute stranger, right? So it was like 2-3
Yeah.
hours, right? And then she just wanted to make her way out and leave with her friend. And I was totally cool with it. I wasn't a creep. But I just remember when she left, since I had shared a moment with her and time with her, and I actually grew to like her, I was like, boy, I hope she gets home okay. I hope her car, I was just like, I hope she's okay when she
Oh,
gets
yeah,
home.
yeah,
So immediately
yeah.
after just liking her and enjoying her company, I was already like, I hope she's okay. And I guess I was doing a little of catastrophizing. And then after that night, I never really thought about her well-being again.
I have
still
I have
do.
done that too.
I wish her
have done
well.
that too. Like, even now, like I think back to women I've met, and maybe they're like one night things or short-term relationships, like a couple dates, and they just were genuinely nice people.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember I have thought even today. Now I don't catastrophize to that extent, but I do think, well, I hope they're okay.
Sure. Yeah,
I hope they had good lives, 'cause I like them.
it's a
But,
nice,
okay, they weren't the one for me, but I like them as
it's
people,
nice to wish well of people,
Yeah, it's
All right, last one we're gonna pull up here. I don't even know what this is. This is some random short.
fun.
Let's do this one. Here we go.
Cognitive distortions are negatively biased patterns of thinking that distort reality and have a negative impact on our moods and how we feel. Jumping to conclusions involves interpreting things negatively without any facts to back it up.
Yes.
We mind read and make assumptions about what someone's thinking, or we fortune tell and predict the future and that things are going to go badly. With magnification and minimization, we give greater weight to
How could I be so stupid?
our perceived weaknesses
Yeah. Oh
and
God.
failures,
I said that
and less
myself.
weight to our own perceived strengths.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that was nothing. Yeah, I experienced that a lot. You go there and you're like, man, that only took 10 minutes and it's already over. And you thought your whole afternoon would be dedicated to this chore. You think it's going to be terrible.
and
Yeah.
successes.
I do that a lot too.
And with catastrophizing, we're predicting the future and jump to the worst possible conclusions while magnifying the consequences of this outcome. Mental filter is filtering out positives and dwelling on negatives. While discounting the positive involves dismissing anything positive, telling ourselves it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
By recognizing these patterns in our own thinking, we can change our thoughts and make them more realistic and help ourselves feel
Making them more realistic. That's a good way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, making them real. That's something.
better.
I like that,
Cognitive distortions are
All right. Well, I think we had a pretty good summary of some CBT, mind reading, etc. You know.
Yeah, right. I think it's good to it makes you aware of them, and I think awareness is often the first step towards uh, working on it if one wants to. And I know I've had all 5 of those cognitive distortions at various times. Some I noticed, even watching this video, I noticed there's some I worked on, and they don't happen as often. But the others that I haven't worked on, they're still going
Sure.
strong.
The best thing to do, I need to do this more often, and then I rewatch our videos, so it helps me sometimes. I don't want to sidetrack, but I talked about playing classical piano more often on like our 3rd episode, and I must say I've done that a lot since then, a year later, and I've been improved greatly. So what I'm trying to say is okay, so I got this like blue book, so it's like journaling, and I put reminder sentences in there of things for myself. And I like to read it in the morning before I get involved with people and decisions. And I don't do it enough. So basically, what do some of the sentences say? They say, it says, don't overtalk, don't overthink. Boom, next sentence. Be thankful for the people you love. And then it could be like silly stuff like, don't forget to brush your teeth. Don't forget to tie your shoes tightly because it hurts when you go out the house with those pair of shoes and don't tighten them. So it's basically a book of bullet sentences that you're giving yourself to reread before you really get started. And then you're like say for instance, like you overtalked some person at work and you felt like they think now you're annoying. So you'd be like, stop being annoying, don't overtalk, or something like that. And like, it's cool because, it's the start of your day and you're like, noted, got it.
I've tried to, and I do this. There was a period of time where I was pretty good at it for a while, and then I sort of lost it. Now I'm getting back into it, where I would try to, like similar in a way, I would remind myself of it, basically affirmations.
Yeah.
And I would repeat a series of lines to myself of who I am and, how to be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like be the change you want to see, or at the very least imagine how others. I mean, you gotta be careful with this one because you don't want to go too far with it, but I imagine how others might perceive me, and then I imagine how I would like to be perceived.
Sure.
In the sense that, what am I bringing to the table? What value am I adding? And in a no pressure kind of way. So, kind of similar to what you saying here, not over talking.
Yeah.
Listening more.
Maybe
more. Like softer tone of voice, not losing my temper as quickly.
Sure.
Things like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Yeah, and then
calm, measured person.
Like one, for instance, when someone's challenging me, I've had in like work and something where it's a bit of a confrontation. I train myself now to kind of take a moment and a deep breath before I respond, and not just be like, it's like, no, I'm gonna, and then not that dramatic, and then speak.
Takes that
like,
moment.
why are you rushing me to give you my answer when I'm not prepared to give you the answer that I need to give you? It's that kind of stuff. It's like, this is kind of how I heard this once. You got to kind of have a huddle with yourself, and you are your own coach, because when you're young, you got coaches and mentors, but eventually you get old enough where you have to coach yourself, and you got to like take the time to talk to yourself, either in your head or out loud, or a combination of both. And it's super important if you want longevity and you want to be productive and you want to just live a good life. So in the end, when you're like, you could say, hey man, I tried, I learned, I did. And that, if that's what the meaning of life is, I think it's easier to move on if you've actually tried your best to refine yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. You taking that space, like if someone's coming at me at work, I learned to do this really as a supervisor a lot.
Sure.
My teammates would have an issue, a problem, something would come up, something would go badly, right? It wasn't their fault. Things would just happen. They'd tell me right away, which is what I wanted. I'd say, please let me know if something goes wrong. I can try to help you fix it, or we'll work on it together. Even if you make a mistake, my rule is never shoot the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
So like, sometimes people would come in with this announcement, oh, something bad happened. Or like, I moved the decimal place and instead of $1,000, it's $1 million. But instead of like losing my mind, how could you do this?
Sure.
I used to just sort of, okay, let me just take a second and say, all right. Good. I'm glad you told me. Okay, what can we do to fix it? That was my whole attitude. What we do, think it's okay. These things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't misplaced the decimal point, right?
Yeah, well, good on you, because you have proven to be able to be a leader in a workplace environment, which is a hard thing to do, because some people live their whole life and they're never a candidate to be a leader because they might get stuck too much in those emotional reactions. And I mean, they get in there too, and that's more like in healthcare, I notice, and like secretaries. They're kind of mean and petty. But I mean, if you're talking about thriving in a truly like complex work work it is to even be nominated and to be a thriving leader, you obviously must have a lot of those traits.
There's something, you show certain traits, and maybe for the culture of the organization, those are the traits they want or like, or they see something that, in my case, like, it's funny because I'm not that supervisor anymore. I'm on a different team now, by choice. But what's interesting is, like, I look back and I think, oh, you know, in a positive way, what did they say in May? And I thought back, like, oh, okay, they must have seen this, this, and this. Now, I'm engaging in a little bit of that mind reading that we talked about.
Sure,
earlier, right?
well, it is valuable.
Granted, it's positive, but still, you know, I don't really know. And a lot of it might be backward rationalizing in a way. But what's interesting is there were some traits, I think, that they saw that for that organization they liked and said, oh, I think he would be really good with these people. And now that I look back, I kind of see why. I can kind of see, I kind of see why, or I think I see why they picked me for that. Sure. And it worked out for all of us. I learned a lot from them. They learned a lot from me. I hope, anyway. Yeah. And, I learned a lot from them. I can say that.
Certainly. Yeah. But you know, I think this topic turned out really well. We just kind of talked about it and just did it. So I thank you for always having a great back and forth and your honesty. And this show's great in general, just for myself, because it is a wonderful way to express myself and deal with some really interesting topics, you know.
Oh, I agree. Thank you for the opportunity to get to chat with you about these issues.
Of course.
I really do get to chat with people about these like this, especially in a forum like this where people can see it. And you know, if you're interested, this is the channel to watch.
That's right. And with that, if you like the show, why not consider subscribing? I don't have a whole lot of subscribers yet, and I don't really have a lot of watch time. But if you're that person who watched this whole video, thanks for doing so. Hit the bell, man. Get the notification. And, you know,
ring.
It kind of is what it is. And with that, we'll do another one soon. All right, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right, later.